As a reviewer, I go into every game wanting to like it. Even if there are things that instinctively turn me off, I want a game to change my mind or overcome my bias by being so damn good in certain areas that it overcomes the weaknesses of others. And this impacts how I select games for review too. I don't like harping on games just because they aren't my thing, but a game that tries to innovate on deck building as you hunt down bounties in the Weird West sounds like it fits perfectly within the wheelhouse called my thing. Yet, here we are, with The Few and the Cursed. Based on the comic book of the same name, the game has players roaming the post-apocalyptic desert wastes surrounding San Andreas, fulfilling jobs, collecting bounties, and discovering mysterious artifacts, which translate to super bangin' cards to add to your deck. Speaking of decks, in spite of the enormous map and slotted player boards, this is a deck building game. Each player character has a similar but unique small starting deck of cards that will be added to and removed from throughout the game. The cards themselves typically grant movement and fight for traveling around the board and collecting bounties, special effects like drawing or trashing cards from your deck, or water, the thematic and somewhat bleak form of cash in the game. In typical fashion, the deck has to be shuffled when you run out of cards, only to be drawn anew. The core innovations are actually pretty interesting. Instead of the big hassle of a market to add cards to your deck, at the start of every turn you'll have a hand of 4 cards, then draw 2 from the improvised deck, discarding 1 and keeping the other in your hand, thereby permanently adding it to the ecosystem of your personal deck. The other major twist is that if you shuffle your deck for running out of cards, your character automatically returns to San Andreas at the end of the round, meaning that your deck acts as a sort of clock for your traveling capabilities. But if that's the bright, polished silver star of the design, the rest is dull rust. Your turn consists of resolving a random event with some thematic ties that can range from mildly helpful to devastatingly bad. Then you spend your cards to pay for the icons checkpointing between locations. If you happen to be at a location with a generic or unique bounty, you can pay its fight cost in cards, supplemented with bullets and special effects from equipment, to collect the rewards, usually points or cash. Generic bounties can be fought again and again, whereas unique bounties are just that, often at specific named locations, packing heavier costs and heavier payoff. In either case, though, it's just go to the requisite location, spend the requisite amount, get the stated reward. Or maybe you don't want to get bounties. Maybe you want those sweet artifacts with their too large of a sticker for the discs scattered in the corners. Well, you take a couple turns spending the requisite movement, hope your events don't break bad, and when you arrive, pick up one of the artifacts from that corner, adding its points, and its banging effects to your hand, hopefully to defeat bigger bounties. Here's the thing about The Few and the Cursed. I dig the concepts, but the execution feels like mostly busy work with anticlimactic payoff. Instead of a sprawling thematic game about exploring a dangerous and amoral world, you're just counting how many green and orange icons you need to get across this turn, instead of an abstract strategy game where you feel like you have an engine growing brilliantly pristine. You're relying on the luck of the draw during your event and when improvising, and while you may want to trash those weak starting cards out of your deck to make it really sing, the force to return to San Andreas after shuffling makes streamlining a hard sell. Not to mention there's about 16 ways to optimize a turn in how you spend your movement, fight, and singular action, so there's generally a good amount of downtime while it ultimately doesn't feel like much of an impact. The game comes to a climax by the big baddies populating on the board, either as players meet certain point thresholds or eliminate enough bounties. These giant resource sponges lurch one space around towards San Andreas, and the game ends if 3 are defeated or any saddle up in town, and the player with the most points at that time wins. Or if you're playing solo or co-op, you either save the town or you don't, though I like that the game justifies points in co-op mode as a sort of depleting clock you have to continually replenish or you lose the game. Look, there are things to like about The Few and the Cursed. It has a unique theme, illustrations ranging from pretty good to outright gorgeous, and the innovative take on deck building feels smooth and creates choices unique to this game. There are a few other systems too, from getting jobs and loot in San Andreas to regulating your health, bullets, and curse threshold on your player board. And the singularly coolest thematic moment of the game, if you become too cursed from certain links of travel or powerful cards you play, you flip your character card over, changing some stats and adding a static penalty that occasionally can prove useful under the right circumstances. But in spite of reading like a game that I love, it rarely justifies itself. A game where random events feel more alive and menacing than the supposed villainous bounties the game is built around, where only mere glimpses of brilliance shine through a canvas that is otherwise tedious, haphazard, and shallow. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.